Good evening, councillors, staff, members of the public. Please be upstanding for Deputy Mayor Bronwyn Ife.
Good evening. We'll start with an acknowledgement of country. Nan Jerapan Wajak Nunga Buja Yakin Nidya Bilya Baruk. I'm honoured to be standing on Wajak Nunga country on the banks of the Swan River. Nang Kadich Nunga Mort, Ken Kadak Nijak Wajak Nunga Buja. Nyan Kadich Nija Buja Nunga Verdia Kora Yeye, Border Balapin Mordich Nunga, Kadichen Mort Webuja Yeye. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and respect past, present and emerging leaders, their continuing cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land which continues to be important today. Nyang Yankan Balapin Nunga Berdia were Mort Nijabuja. I thank them for the contribution made to life in the town of Victoria Park and to this region. Please be seated. We'll begin with announcements from the presiding member. 2.1, recording and live streaming of proceedings. In accordance with Regulation 14L of the Local Government Administration Council Regulations 1996, this meeting is being audio recorded and video recorded and live streamed on the town's website. Under Clause 39(1) of the Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019, I do not give permission for any other person to record the proceedings of this meeting. By being present at this meeting, members of the public consent to the possibility that their image and voice may be live streamed to the public. Recordings are also made available on the town's website following the meeting. 2.2, public question time and public statement time. There are guidelines that need to be adhered to in our council meetings, and during question and statement time, people speaking are not to personalise any questions or statements about elected members or staff or use any possible defamatory remarks. In accordance with Clause 40 of the Town of Victoria Park Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019, a person addressing the council shall extend due courtesy and respect to the council and the processes under which it operates, and shall comply with any direction by the presiding member. A person present at or observing a meeting shall not create a disturbance at the meeting by interrupting or interfering with the proceedings, whether by expressing approval or dissent, by conversing or by any other means. When the presiding member speaks during public question time or public statement time, any person then speaking is to immediately stop, and every person present is to preserve strict silence so that the presiding member may be heard without interruption. In public question time and public statement time, we have a limit of 3 questions per person and a maximum of 2 minutes per statement. 2.3, no adverse reflection. In accordance with Clause 56 of the Town of Victoria Park Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019, both elected members and the public, when speaking, are not to reflect adversely on the character or actions of elected members or employees. 2.4, Town of Victoria Park Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019. All meetings of the council, committees and the electors are to be conducted in accordance with the Act, the regulations and the Town of Victoria Park Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019. Point 2.5, attendance at council by electronic means. In accordance with section 5.34 of the Local Government Act 1995, as Deputy Mayor, I will be acting as the presiding member at tonight's ordinary council meeting. Pursuant to Regulation 14C2B of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996, I authorise Mayor Karen Vernon to attend the ordinary council meeting to be held on the 20th of May 2025 by the approved electronic means of MS Teams, and I'm satisfied that Mayor Vernon will be in a suitable location from which to attend the meeting, and that the equipment she intends to use to attend the meeting is suitable for her to be able to effectively engage in deliberations and communications during the meeting in accordance with Regulations 14C5 of the regulations. Pursuant to Regulation 14CA5 of the regulations, Mayor Vernon has declared that she can maintain confidentiality during the meeting or the closed part of the meeting as the case requires. And I see that the Mayor has joined us online now. 2.6, the Mayor's report will be added into the minutes at a later date. Point 3, attendance. We have all elected members in attendance, including the Mayor, who is attending via electronic means. We have a number of the town staff in attendance, led by the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Carl Askew. Item 4, declarations of interest. Mr CEO, do we have any declarations of interest, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. 2 items, both from myself, both financial and both for the confidential items 22.1 and 22.2.
Thank you for that, Mr CEO. Do any other elected members have any conflicts of interest they would like to declare? Councillor Devereux.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I will send through a declaration of impartiality for 11.2, the outcomes of the annual meeting of electors, having discussed some of the issues with some members of the community that were putting motions.
Thank you, Councillor Devereux. Any other elected members like to declare anything at this stage? No? Great, thank you very much. Item 5, public question time. Anyone who asked questions at the Ordinary Council meeting on the 15th of April 2025 or at the Agenda Briefing Forum on the 6th of May 2025, those answers are available in tonight's agenda. We have a number of people on the list to ask public questions, and we will start with Vince Maxwell, please.
Thanks. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and councillors. I've just got some questions on the Capital Works program and the proposed differential rates advertising. So at the start of this financial year, there was nearly $23 million in unfinished projects, about that many. And then another $33 million in Capital Works was added to that. It's part of this budget. And then in February, the council added another $4 million. I'll make it fall over. So bringing the total Capital Works to $60 million. Yet as of the end of March, only $8 million of works has been completed, which is this much. So the first step towards fixing a problem is recognising that there is a problem. And every time I've raised this issue, the Mayor, who's not here tonight, has said that she doesn't agree that the program is running behind. With only 6 weeks to go, do you, Deputy Mayor, believe that the town's $60 million Capital Works program will be completed by the end of June this year?
I'm unable to answer that question exactly at this stage because I simply don't have in front of me the exact progress of all of those projects, but I will see if the Chief Financial Officer would be interested in making a comment on that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The questionnaire is correct. Of the $60 million, there are clearly projects will not be finished because they won't be started. It's well known that Lathlane Zone 1 is subject to quite a different potential outcome, as we know, with the state government potentially taking that over, and that's worth almost $20 million, 18.9. There's other well-known key projects in the town, being the Ed Millen precinct, which is well underway, but we expect to have a fair bit left over for carry forward on that. There's also McCallum Park down the bottom of the district that is also a significant work in progress. And also, did I mention at Rutland Avenue, I think there's $1.3 million that was slated, which clearly has some other design and other public concern issues. So just those that mentioned a total of about $24 million without going through the whole list of where the status is for all of those.
Thank you. Another question, Mr. Maxwell?
Yes, thank you. So the town is delivering an average of about $1 million per month in Capital Works. Actually, it's a bit less than $1 million, but in my opinion, if that trend continues, and as I forecast earlier this year, only about $12 million will be delivered by the 30th of June, leaving $48 million to carry over to the next financial year. Last month I asked how much the town expects to carry over, and the question was taken on notice, and the answer was published in tonight's agenda, and it states that this figure won't be known until the budget is completed. So despite this misinformation, tonight Council is being asked to advertise a 5% rate increase, which would raise $55.7 million in total rates. So what is the amount of new capital works included in the figure that supports this proposed $55.7 million in rates revenue?
Thank you for your question. Chief Financial Officer, Mr Old.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As Council would be aware, we've had a number of workshops. We had capital workshop more recently, which elected members had a chance to nominate with the information provided their preferred project. That number has not been finalised. As you all know, we have another workshop scheduled in June, and the full budget and proposed capital works will be published for the July ABF at this point.
Thank you. Mr Maxwell?
Okay, so I take it we don't know how much capital works is included in that figure, is it from that answer?
Well, the budget hasn't been passed yet. As you'd be aware from your time on council, this is about an intention. Nothing has been locked in stone as yet.
I'm just wondering where the $55 million figure come from, but don't worry, I'll ask something about that later. In regards to the town's cash position, so last year council increased rates by 8%, largely to fund this very ambitious capital works program, but only 1/5 of the allocated capital works budget will actually be spent. At the beginning of the year, council adopted a zero surplus budget, which means that all money raised would be spent by year's end. And if that was the case, the town's cash position at the end of the year should be similar to where it started. Can you tell me how much has the town's cash balance increased over the last 12 months?
Mr Old?
Deputy Mayor, no, I don't have that on hand.
Can we take that on notice? We'll take that on notice. Thank you, Mr Maxwell. That's your 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just return these to the casino.
Do appreciate a visual element. Thank you. Next on my list is Luana Lissandro.
Luana Lissandro, Lath Lane. My question pertains to 11.2 and the notices of motion by electors at the annual electors meeting. I notice in the report of bus stops not reinstated, it's not a very big list, and I'm wanting to know if the town had looked at specific routes, for example, the 39, bus stops 14439 on Goddard Street wasn't included, that had a bus shelter, wasn't reinstated, and Cornwall Street, bus stop 14445, that wasn't reinstated, and the list goes on. So my question is, how extensive is that list and how far back did it go?
Thank you for your question. I will ask the Chief Operations Officer to answer that, please.
Thank you. So through the Chair, in terms of your questions about how extensive the list is and how far back it goes, I'll take that part on notice. But I just wanted to provide some context to your preface, which was about some of the routes and some of the bus shelters that have not been reinstated. So there is criteria in terms of the number of people boarding buses at each stop. So as part of that criteria, I do understand that some of the ones that you mentioned do not meet that criteria now. So it may be that it has been looked at in terms of the town's ability to have funding for it, met partly by the PTA, is compromised for that. So if we were to put a bus shelter for those that don't meet criteria, we would have to, as the town, fund it 100%. That's excluding the hard stand, that's the shelter only. So so that's context for some of those shelters that you did mention, and I will we'll go back and listen and get the comments on the other ones. And in terms of how extensive that whole list is and how far back it goes, I'll take that on notice.
Thank you. You have another question?
Yes, thank you. In relation to bus stops, I did have a look at one of the routes, and that was the Route 39. Does the town have, when the PTA basically look at bus stops, and obviously they look at passenger numbers and boarding, does the town have a say in removal of bus stops? Because I noticed one of the timed bus stops, which is on Star Street just before Archer, which was a designated time stop, was removed. Did the town have any input? Because the PTA put a hard stand in and then removed the bus stop.
Okay, we'll put that one to the Chief Community Planner, Mr Doy.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and thanks for the question. With regards to the removal of bus stops, the PTA should be liaising with the Town of Victoria Park if they're intending to remove a bus stop. I don't know if they did in that instance, and that will be one that, if it's okay, we'll take a lot of notice to find out. But yes, they should be liaising with us if they intend to remove a bus stop or realign a route.
Thank you. And my final question relates to the raised plateau at Star Street, at the corner of Star and Archer, just opposite the Carlisle North Post Office. Is the town aware of safety concerns of the plateau, which has it's quite extensive, it's quite wide, it's about possibly 4.5 metres wide, of cars using it as a crossover to get in and out of the post office, when clearly that area is designated for pedestrians and there's a conflict between vehicles and vulnerable road users. So is the town aware of any issues, and will they rectify that?
Ms Adams?
Thank you. Through the chair, personally, no, I'm not aware of them using that as a crossover to access that. I think I'll review it and come back. We'll have a look at it, because I think we have to make that distinction between driver behaviour and then what we can actually take, what steps we could take to mitigate safety concerns. So I'll take it on notice.
Thank you for raising that.
That's okay. If there's further time, are we allowed further questions?
We will see if there's anyone else in the
Thank you.
gallery first. Thank you, Ms Lisandro. Is there anyone else in the public gallery who would like to ask a question? No? I'm feeling extremely generous. Luana Lisandro, if you've got an additional question to ask.
Yes, thank you. Just in relation to the officer's comments about my last question, if the town in previous diagrams, it looked like that raised plateau was a pedestrian crossing, and upon talking to some people who use that crossing, they believe that it should be a pedestrian crossing. And given that there is the raised tactile elements on both sides for those with vision impairments, is the town in a position to be able to investigate moving towards having that marked as a pedestrian crossing, as well as the other one on the other side, further down on Star Street?
Ms Adams?
Through the chair again, I will take that on notice, but I do know that we are quite behind, as are a number of councils, on our line marking, which Main Roads undertakes. So I'll just check where we are at with that and come back.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is because obviously if anyone has actually seen that location, because it's so wide, it indicates to drivers to be able to drive on it, as opposed to pedestrians being able to actually walk safely. And given that there's a footpath, and often you'll find cars
Sandro,
parked there.
you're heading in the direction of a statement. Thank you. We're about to get to statements. All right. I will call public question time ended at 6:49 p.m. and open public statement time. First on our list for a public statement is Vince Maxwell.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. At the start of this financial year, the town carried forward nearly $23 million in unfinished capital works projects that were funded by ratepayers in 23-24. On top of that, $33 million in new works was added, and then another $4 million in February, bringing the total capital works program to $60 million. At the current rate, as I mentioned before, the town might deliver around $12,000 by year end, leaving a $48 million carryover into next year. Yet tonight you're being asked to advertise a 5% rate increase to raise $55.7 million. When I asked last month how much of this year's works will be carried forward into next year, the answer was that we don't know until the budget is done. So with respect, how can council in good conscience support a rate increase without having clear, up-to-date numbers to justify it? At all the budget workshops you had, did anyone ask how the $55.7 million figure was determined? Or was it simply plucked out of thin air? It's clear many of these projects were not adequately planned or ready to proceed, and a more realistic capital works program would have protected ratepayers from being charged for works that were never going to happen. Last year's 8% rate increase was partly justified by this same ambitious program, but most of that money has not been spent. It's sitting in the town's bank account instead of circulating in the local economy, where it could have been supporting local jobs, small business and community prosperity. Although the staff were unable to tell you the numbers tonight, I can. The town's bank balance has grown from $76 million to over $102 million in just 1 year. That's not just inefficient, it's unfair. Ratepayers were told their money was needed for projects that were never going to happen, while the town's bank account grows and the community sees little in return. I'm concerned to hear tonight that elected members have been
Sorry,
asked...
Mr Maxwell,
which-
that's 2 minutes.
I've only got one more sentence.
Okay.
So I'm concerned tonight to hear that elected members were asked which projects they wanted to add to an already enormous backlog that we already have there in place. So we deserve better planning, more honest forecasting and more respect of ratepayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Maxwell. Next on my list for a statement is Luana Alessandro.
Thank you, Luana Alessandro, Lathlane. Just in relation to the draft, I know at the last ABF I mentioned that it said I was from Carlisle, but it should be changed to Lathlane. I'm hoping that that's not timed. I did mention that previous. But I'm hoping that elected members will look at the notices of motion for the e-petitions and move forward. It is to investigate, and I think that it's clear that the support at the gallery overwhelmingly supported it, and I believe that our residents and ratepayers would greatly appreciate being able to lodge e-petitions with the town. So I'm hoping that someone will move an amendment to do that. But also I'd like to make mention that that with relation to bus stops, I understand, yes, the officer stated that there's patronage in numbers, but some of those bus stops are used by our elderly, so there's not even seating in some of those bus stops, so perhaps that could be looked at. And in relation to the Heritage tram stop now at Elizabeth Bailey Park, I believe that it's contained within the park, so I'm hoping that that could be looked at and progressed, because to have all of that developed and not have that historic bus tram stop be addressed would be kind of incomplete. It feels incomplete given that it has a history and trams operated, I believe, until the early 1950s to that stop. So I'm hoping that that will be considered. In relation to the safety issues at the plateau opposite the Carlisle North Post Office, I really do hope council address it. The footpath and the plateau and where people park to access the post office there's so many issues that could happen in relation to, an inattentive driver, whatever. So I think that needs to be looked at, and I'm hoping that the town will address
2
it.
minutes.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms Lissandro. And can I ask, please, the governance team to ensure that Ms Lissandro's addresses are recorded as being in Lathlane rather than in Carlisle for the minutes, both of tonight and of the annual meeting of electors. Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public gallery who would like to make a statement tonight? No one? All right, I will bring public statement time to an end at 6:55 p.m. Thank you to those who contributed tonight. Moving on, item 7, confirmation of minutes and receipt of notes from any agenda briefing forum. The recommendation is that Council 1 confirms the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 15 April 2025. 2, receives the notes of the agenda briefing forum held on 6 May 2025. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? For some reason, it's not coming up on the big screen, but that is moved Councillor Minson and seconded Councillor Cruiser. Councillor Minson, would you like to be heard? Councillor Cruiser, would you like to be heard? No. I will ask officially, is there any dissent? Okay, I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8, presentation of minutes from external bodies. The recommendation is that Council 1 receives the minutes of Walga South East Metropolitan Zone held on 20 November 2024. 2, receives the minutes of Catalina Regional Council meeting held on 20 February 2025. And 3, receives the minutes of Mindari Regional Council meeting held on 27 February 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that item, please? That's moved Councillor Anderson and seconded Councillor Minson. Councillor Anderson, would you like to be heard? Thank you. Councillor Minson, would you like to say anything? No. Is there any dissent to that item, please? No, no dissent. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 9, presentations. 9.1, petitions. We have none. 9.2, presentations. We have none. 9.3, deputations. We have none. Moving on to item 10, method of dealing with agenda business. Now I will start reading out the items that will be moved by exception resolution. If any elected members would like any of these taken out, please let me know before I call for a mover and a seconder for this item. So the recommendation is that the following items be adopted by exception resolution and that the remaining items be dealt with separately. 11.1, Council Resolution Status Report, April 2025. 11.3, May 2025 Policy Review. 11.5, Local Emergency Management Arrangements. 12.1, Economic Development Grants 2024-25 Recommended Recipients. 12.2, Public Comment Period Draft Youth Action Plan 2025 to 2028. 12.3, Community Benefit Strategy Update. 13.1, TVP/25/03 Tree Audit Services. 4.1, Schedule of Accounts March 2025. 4.2, Financial Statements March 2025. 14.3, 2025-26 Proposed Differential Rates and Minimum Payments. 15.1, Final Audit Report Leases and Licensing Management. 15.2, Audit Update Report March 2025. 15.3, Corporate Business Plan Quarter 3 Progress Report, January to March 2025. And 15.4, Review of Policy 004 Risk Management. Before I ask for a mover and a seconder, does anyone want any of those items taken out of the exception resolution? No? Terrific. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, for those items? Still seeking a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you. That's moved Councillor Minson and seconded Councillor Hamer. Councillor Minson, would you like to be heard? Councillor Hamer? Is there any dissent? Okay, I declare those carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the remainder of the agenda. Item 11.1 has been dealt with by exception resolution. Item 11.2, outcomes from annual meeting of electors 10th of March 2025. The recommendation is that Council 1 receives the minutes of the 2025 annual electors meeting held on Monday 10 March 2025 as contained in attachment 1, and 2 considers the decisions made at the annual meeting of electors held on Monday 10 March 2025 as contained within the body of this report. Can we please have a mover and a seconder for that item? That's moved Councillor Hamer and seconded Councillor Devereux. I'm aware that there's some amendments coming, but I will ask first if Councillor Hamer, would you like to be heard before we start considering amendments? No. Councillor Devereux, would you like to be heard on the topic? All right, I believe we have an amendment. Councillor Hamer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I might have an amendment to 11.2, is to read, to add an additional point 3, which reads, support motion 4, and request the CEO to investigate the introduction and implementation of electronic online petitions to allow residents and ratepayers to create and lodge petitions via an online petition portal on the town's website, ahead of the introduction of upcoming local government reforms. This information is to be reported back to Council after the local government elections are legislated within 2 council meetings.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Hamer. Can I have a seconder for Councillor Hamer's motion, please? It's Councillor Cruiser. Councillor Cruiser, thank you very much. Councillor Hamer, would you like to give us your reason, please?
Thank you. The current consultation paper on the upcoming meeting and procedures law reads, allow local governments to establish an electronic petitioning system if they wish. While it is not advised we act until this is in place, there is no harm in looking into what is required so the council can look at having this implemented after that point in time. We managed to push ahead with the elected members' superannuation before that had a clear pathway given to us from future reforms. So there is no reason why we cannot be one of the first to have this after the new regulations come into play, taking into consideration certain things like privacy implications if intended to have anonymised, time frame and costs, and having a standard system across all LGAs, or having our own version.
Thank you. That was your reason. Would you like to speak further to the item?
The reasons are clear that the annual meeting of electors was unanimous about this, and there's no reason why we can't ask the CEO to investigate this point.
Thank you, Councillor Hamer. Councillor Cruiser, as a seconder, would you like to speak?
Briefly, just to say that local government is the level of government that most intimately touches people's lives in an everyday way and their neighbourhoods, and finding ways to facilitate engagement and participation from the community is important. We allow electronic petitions at other levels of government, and this is one way we can try to facilitate getting ideas from the community and hearing more about what the community wants.
Thank you, Councillor Cruiser. Before I ask for any dissent or any debate, does anyone have any questions on this amendment? No, none. I'll ask formally then, is there any dissent to this amendment? All right, that was quite straightforward. I declare that amendment carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Hamer. Councillor Devereux, did you have an amendment too?
Yes, Deputy Member, I did have an amendment also that I've shared with elected members and governance, which was also picking up on several motions from the annual meeting of electors. Shall I read the proposed amendment?
If you could read the amendment and then give us your reasons, and then I'll call for a seconder. Thank you.
So the amendment, now we have a point 3, so I guess I'll change my amendment to suggest adding points 4, 5 and 6. to the recommendation after point 3 instead of point 2. Point 4 is request the CEO to investigate the potential restoration and costing of preserving the brick tram stop in consultation with the State Heritage Office. Number 5, in accord with motion 7, requests the administration conducts a community survey for an upgrade to Parnham Park, Carlisle. And point 6, requests the CEO to investigate options for removal of gas from all town facilities and investigates ways to support residents' transition away from gas. My reason was that the officers' comments on the annual meeting of electors motions include a range of responses, some that directly imply action with the word will, and others that do not, which use the word can. This amendment tries to ensure direct action is considered where it was not clear to address the intent of the motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Devereux. I'm seeking a seconder for that amendment, please. Councillor Hamer, were you looking to second? Yes, thank you. That's seconded, Councillor Hamer. Councillor Devereux, would you like to speak further?
Just very quickly, Deputy Mayor Ife, just to say I was delighted to see that this year there was a slightly different format to the way the annual meeting of electors was documented, which explicitly showed the engagement of the town with the issues that were raised by our community, and I think that was positive, but there was some ambiguity in the way some things talked about possibilities for action and others talked about a concrete action, and so it seemed only fair to and I think when we asked the administration as well, we were advised that if we wanted to ensure action, we should be clear about the language, and so for those 3 motions that I've picked up on, the language had been around can, not will, so I've just tried to address that with this motion to pick up on those 3 motions that people from the community had raised, and including our community member from Lathlane, not Carlisle, that came to highlight those some of those points tonight. And I'm not sure if she mentioned the tram stop, but I think in particular the tram stop is a nice one, given we're working on the new Elizabeth Bailey area, and so I think to have a historic tram stop there is a real value add, and so it's sort of good timing to have that clearly on the agenda, I think, as is also the others, which are equally important, and the community also regards them as important, and I think the fact that they raised them on the night includes the fact that they linked to specific town plans and strategies that we already have in place, and so it's not like any of them don't relate to things that we actually already regard as important. So it seems nice to be able to commend those motions to the town for investigation, and that's what this motion tries to do, in keeping with what Councillor Hamer has done with the e-petitions one. So I hope people will consider supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that we do have some people who might have questions, but we do have a seconder to ask first. Councillor Hamer, as a seconder, would you like to speak?
I'd like to ask questions, but I can wait.
But would you like to speak as a seconder?
Nothing to say as a seconder.
I believe Mayor Vernon had her hand up for a question first, so we might ask for a question from her first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Obviously, I didn't get very much notice of this amendment. I think it came through around 6 o'clock. So just looking through it, can I please ask, with regards to the point about Parnham Park, understand that there's an upgrade to the children's playground, which I think might be in the draft capital works program for the coming year. Can I get some confirmation of that, please?
Mr. Doy?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. What's proposed for the 25-26 budget is a renewal of the existing playground. It's not an upgrade.
Thank you. Mayor Vernon?
Okay, so on that basis, I'm trying to ascertain what is meant in the proposed amendment by upgrade of Parnham Park. Are we talking about a complete upgrade of the whole park? Is that what's being referred to by Councillor Devereux?
Councillor Devereux, would you like to address that?
Maybe if thanks, Mayor Vernon, for the question. The point refers to motion 7, which talked about, for example, the proximity to the senior citizens facilities, and so it indicated some opportunity to consider pathways and other things like that might allow an upgrade to the park that would make them more accessible. As I understand it, there was the intent of the motion. So I was just going on the intent of the motion, which did have that sort of breadth to it, but I haven't been more specific than that in the point.
Mayor Vernon, I'm not sure if you've got the most up-to-date proposed amendment in front of you, but the most up-to-date one doesn't talk about doing the upgrade in the financial year. It talks about conducting a community survey for the upgrade. Is that the correct amendment that you have in front of you?
That's the only amendment that was sent to me, so that's it. But
Okay, I just wanted to clarify the language might have caused some confusion.
No, that part of the language didn't cause any confusion for me. So I'm trying to ascertain what this would look like for the administration to operationalise such a decision of ours. To conduct a community survey for an upgrade of Parnham Park, is Councillor Devereux anticipating that his amendment would see a town-wide survey of everybody as to all the things they would like to see happen at Parnham Park in the future, in the same way that we start a master plan process? Or is he talking about something else altogether?
Councillor Devereux.
Thanks, Mayor Vernon, for the question. While it would be nice to consult the entire community, I think that would probably be unnecessary. Just going back to the motion put at the annual meeting of electors, it was to investigate and consider doing a community survey on future upgrades to Parnham Park, and interacting with relevant stakeholders and nearby nursing homes to create an inviting and accessible park for all. So I think that implies to me the relevant stakeholders would be the ones close by, and as is mentioned, the nearby nursing homes was an obvious one in terms of thinking about people that might want an accessible park. At the moment, the park is inviting for particularly football players or soccer players, but doesn't have a path around the edge of it, for example, for people to be able to traverse with a walker or something like that. So it was my assumption that those were the sorts of considerations that were in the mind of the mover as reflected in the motion. I didn't have anything more in mind than that. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Vernon, any further questions?
So in order to achieve complete clarity for this proposed amendment, is what's being proposed that the administration will have to do a town-wide survey with no parameters, asking people what types of upgrades they would want to have Parnham Park? I just need to understand the size of the exercise, because it doesn't matter what the member of the public moved their motion for. I'm trying to concentrate on the amendment that's now being proposed that the town will have to deliver on. So that's what I don't have clarity on. So I'm looking for clarity on what is meant by a community survey or an upgrade of Parnham Park. Happy to have some comment from officers, please.
Mr. Doy, would you like to make a comment?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Thanks for the question. We can certainly ascertain and consider what would be the best community survey for a park of this size and in the location. Having thought about this only tonight, I would say that a town-wide community survey is unnecessary. but the extent of a community survey would need to be considered, but I suspect it would be for the immediate surrounds, probably within 800 metres of the park would be my guess at this stage.
Thank you. I'll return to you in just a minute, Mayor Vernon. Can I just ask governance on that note? Would it be clearer if the wording of this part of the amendment indicated that it did not need to be a town-wide survey? Ms Tucker?
Thank you. It would probably provide more clarity in the recommendation.
Thank you. Mayor Vernon, did you have any additional questions?
Yes. So just so I can understand this, is it the case that the town will be conducting the usual letter drop to the surrounding residents of Parnham Park ahead of delivering an upgrade to the playground to ask those community members what they would like to see in the playground?
Mr Doy?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Not to design a consultation program on the run, but I would say that what we've done in previous upgrades to parks of a similar size has been a letter drop, an online with a link to an online survey, and traditionally we would have a session out on site where we would invite the community to come out to the park and to provide their input, provide an outline of their experience of the park to officers and their input into what could potentially happen at the park.
Does that help you, Mayor Vernon?
Yes, that helps me with regards to that particular part of the proposed amendment. And my other question relates to the proposed Amendments 3 and 5, requesting the investigation of potential restoration for the brick tram stop and the options for removal of gas from town facilities, and the separate investigation for ways to support residents transition away from gas. First of all, with regards to both those, the first and last of the points of Councillor Devereux's amendment, can we get some information from the administration about the likely cost of those investigations and the resources needed to undertake those investigations?
You stole my question, Mayor Vernon. Yes, we can. I will ask Mr Old if he can address that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Having the same amount of time as a Chief Community Planner to consider this, that is very, very difficult to ascertain. I guess a first stage investigation is perhaps warranted to know how much that would cost. You know, both of those could be potentially quite big, you know, perhaps in six figures, or relatively small. That's a nothing answer because I actually just genuinely don't know.
Thank you. Mayor Vernon, any further questions?
In relation to the third point of Councillor Devereux's proposed amendment with regards to the not so much the options for removal of gas from all town facilities, but the investigation of ways to support residents transition away from gas. First part of the question is that already part of our climate emergency plan? And if not, is that the sort of step that we can take when we begin our review of the climate emergency plan coming up in the future?
Ms Adams?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So through the Chair, it is part of our climate emergency plan. It is part of the initiatives that we are looking to do. In terms of our support, that is something that we do need to investigate further, and there's various ways of doing it, including, for example, incentivising the residents and businesses in if they have a desire to transition away from gas. There are other parts to it as well in terms of potential other, I suppose, impacts in terms of budget impacts that may be required to support some of those potential initiatives.
Thank you, Ms Adams. Mayor Vernon, anything further?
So my final question then is, how are elected members going to be in a position to support the amendment where at least two of those items, if not all three of them, actually require financial resources to be applied by the town to those projects, but we don't have nearly enough details or it appears any information available as to how much these exercises will cost.
We're playing question tennis up here. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Mayor, for the question. I think that the short answer is it is difficult, as you've heard, for us to provide definitive resource and financial commentary on the actions taken. A lot of it may well be in-house and staff time, and again, difficult to quantify based on the size of the project, which I think does make it difficult for you as elected members to vote on those items.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Right, are there any other elected members who have questions? Councillor Hamer.
Thanks, Mayor Bennett. This might be a question for the officer or it might be for Councillor Devereux. Is there a timeline that is intended for any of these reports to come back to us, or what's the kind of position on that?
Councillor Devereux, did you have any thoughts about that?
I didn't put a timeline just because I was literally taking the officer's comment, and so the officer's comment didn't have a timeline with it, so I was relying on what they had. I wasn't, which was in ABF as well 2 weeks ago, so I didn't put in a timeline. I'd be happy to put a timeline in if the town staff would like to suggest an appropriate timeline to include. I'd be happy to.
Ms. Tucker? Oh, Mr. CEO, would you like to address that?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think under the circumstances and given it's difficult to quantify the size of the research and investigation required, I'd be concerned at us attempting to put a time frame to it at this point. I prefer to leave it open as it is worded.
Councillor Hamer, any further questions?
Just one more, thanks. The officer's comments in the report mentioned that the town will also investigate options for other facilities and that the town will conduct further feasibility, life cycle analysis, et cetera, So is there a similarity between what is the officer's comment and the motion, or is the officer's comment stating what could be done and this motion is required to make that happen?
Yes, Ms. Adams, thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think, I'm happy with the wording that's been put on the amendment for that. I think it reflects the intention, which was that the town was intending to investigate it. We named one facility because it was the largest user, but there's an intention to look at all the facilities.
Anything further, Councillor Hamer?
Yes, but if this motion was to fall, that intention to investigate its options would still remain.
Ms. Adams?
Through the chair, as per the wording, that was our interpretation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hamer. Any other elected members with questions? Councillor Miles.
So I'd like some clarity around the heritage one. Partly, I'm not sure whether it's a Councillor Devereux question or a CFO question. My understanding when I read this is that we're asking the CEO to, I don't know how you investigate state heritage things, but I don't know, send some emails and be like, how much will it cost to fix up the bus stop? But the CFO said it would be potentially 6 figures. So am I correct in that my understanding is that we'd just be kind of doing some preliminary investigating of how much it would cost and it wouldn't be a big job, or are these things actually much more complicated than I understand them to be?
I'll ask the Chief Financial Officer to address that, please, Mr. Old.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My comments were probably a global response to the three ideas. That particular one, I would say we still don't know. I was probably more looking at the reference to Aqualife because we happened to have a tour there the other day, and removing infrastructure, retrofitting geothermal to that could be, I don't even want to begin to how much that could cost. So yeah, to each would be a six figure that wasn't my intention. I'm sorry if that was unclear.
Does that help, Councillor Miles? Does. Anyone else have questions on this amendment? No. Councillor Devereux.
I just want to ask the town staff whether what they've written as the officer comment is still correct for each of the motions that I've talked about. So motion 6 says in the officer comment, the last bit, the administration can investigate the potential restoration and costing of preserving the brick tram stop in consultation with the State Heritage Office. Is that still correct?
Mr. Doy.
The answer is, sorry, thanks, Deputy Mayor Off. Yes, the answer is yes, we can absolutely investigate, yes.
Thank you. The point for motion 9 said in the review, in the last sentence, in the review of the climate emergency plan, the town can also include provision to investigate ways that it can support residents' transition away from gas. Is that still correct, with no mention of budget?
Ms. Adams.
Through the chair, yes, that is correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Councillor Hamer.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Can I ask a question of the officers? Can we vote on these points separately, or we have to vote on the whole lot together?
We can absolutely vote on them separately, yes. Does anyone else have any questions? The Mayor has another question. Yes, Mayor Vernon.
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering if Councillor Devereux might consider changing some of the wording of his proposed amendment so that, for example, bear with me while I go to his point. His point with regards to, in accordance with motion 7, request the administration conducts a community survey for an upgrade to Parnham Park, Carlisle. I wonder if Councillor Devereux might consider using the words from the officer's comment where it says a review of the town's public open space strategy is due to occur in the coming financial year, and that's the appropriate mechanism for the community to have their say on potential future upgrades to Parnham Park. If he might consider that he could change his wording in regards to motion 7 to reflect a request that the community be surveyed regarding Parnham Park during the review of the public open space strategy, which the officers say is due to be conducted in the 25-26 budget year. That way it ensures he gets what I think he wants, which is a community to have their say, but it's done through a project that the officer's comment recommends they're already planning to do.
Councillor Devereux.
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. I'd be happy to make that change.
And would your seconder be content with that change? I'm going to take that thumbs up as a yes, Deputy Mayor Ife. I would be thrilled with that change. So we need to know what the wording is. Councillor Devereux, did you take note of the wording? I believe the wording was, and please correct me if I'm wrong, requests that the community be surveyed on Parnham Park during the review of the public open space strategy that is scheduled to take place in the 2025-2026 financial year. Councillor Devereux is happy with that? Administration's happy with that?
That sounds good. Thank you.
Are we content with that? Yeah, we'll do. Excellent. Councillor Hamer, you're happy with that?
Yes, I'm very happy with that. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Off.
All right. As per the request from one of the elected members, we will deal with each of these separately if people are content to do that. So we'll look firstly at point 4, which is request the CEO to investigate the potential restoration and costing of preserving the brick tram stop in consultation with the State Heritage Office. I will ask first if there is any dissent to that particular item. No dissent? Thank you very much. I declare point 4 carried unanimously. Thank you. Point 5, which now reads, request that the community be surveyed on Parnham Park at the time that the public open space strategy is reviewed in 2025-26. Is there any elected member that has any dissent for that item? No, no dissent. I declare that carried unanimously too. Thank you. And point 6, request the CEO to investigate options for removal of gas from all town facilities and investigates ways to support residents' transition away from gas. Is there any dissent to that point? Councillor Hamer is in dissent. So for that reason, we will open it up for debate. Councillor Hamer, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just that this point has already been addressed by the officer's comments tonight, that this is something they're already looking at, and this point's not required in this amendment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hamer. So that's we've already had Councillor Devereux speaking in favour and Councillor Hamer speaking against. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in favour of the new point 6? Councillor Minson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ife. My understanding of the amendment is to, acknowledge the original motion from the community members. And I think what we've heard from the officers tonight is that that work is mostly underway or planned to be underway, and that without, a time frame on the amendment as is, it kind of just adds, a bit of acknowledgement to the community's position and acknowledging that, yes, we also think that's important, and yes, we will investigate it as what we are already doing. So I don't think there's, really too much of a resourcing or costing or kind of issue there. So no reason in my mind to vote against the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Minson. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against the amendment? Mayor
yes,
Vernon?
please, Deputy Mayor.
Yes. I'm sorry, Mayor, I
yes.
can't see anything on the screen. I'm relying on the staff.
Okay, no worries. Yes, I'd like to speak against this part of the amendment. I think the officer's comment makes quite clear that investigation of feasibility of replacing gas use for council facilities is a discrete action in the climate emergency plan. That plan is still continuing, and the officer's comment notes that there needs to be what seems to be feasibility and life cycle analysis, particularly in relation to Aqualife, which is noted as being the most significant gas consuming facility we have. Feasibly, that is work that would be a significant, status and may need to be done by experts outside the town. And so given that putting this into a council resolution in this way, in my view, creates a project that is a project in its own right, and it's got two parts to it, be done by very different people. And I see no reason for us to make that a discrete action in addition to something that's already part of the climate emergency plan and would be reviewed and dealt with in due course, because otherwise you end up creating a new project, even if it's got similarities to something that already exists. So in my view, there isn't a need to include this. Had there been, more time and this amendment being shared around with elected members with maybe some commentary from the town staff in advance, we might have had some clearer details about the extent of the project that might need to be undertaken. So at this stage, I wouldn't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in favour of this point of the amendment? Yes, Councillor Cruiser.
The officer's comment on motion 9 is quite firm that there is some work already happening in terms of investigating renewable possibilities for council facilities. It does leave it open when it comes to provision to investigate ways it can support residents' transition away from gas, and merely says that the town can also help to do this. I think that leaving the amendment relatively open in the way that it does leaves it up to town staff to consider the best ways to go about this operationally. It might be through the review of the climate emergency plan. It might be in some other way. There is no specification to bring a report to council at a specific time. I think that there is a lot of leeway for staff to decide which resources are available to them, to request resources as part of the budget process in order to carry this out, and to consider also the scale of the investigation and the kinds of actions that they have the resources to support. And I think that that is a strength of the motion. And so for that reason, I'll be supporting this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Cruiser. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against this amendment? Anyone who would like to speak on this point of the amendment at all? I will speak briefly on this point of the amendment. I understand the arguments from both those who are supporting it and those who are not inclined to support it. I am inclined to support this part of the amendment simply because it is very broad and allows the investigation of options. I don't believe it's obliging us to a project or to a specific time frame or even necessarily to a vast sum of money. I believe it could be as simple as this gets the ball rolling on considering how we might transition away from gas in these town facilities. And I think that it's a ball that needs to start rolling. I appreciate that it very much reflects what was being intended in the report anyway. And it also reflects a request from our community that I don't think was an unreasonable one, that we consider getting this ball rolling. So I'm happy to support this point of the amendment. Now, before I hand to Councillor Devereux to see if he would like to close the debate, is there anyone else who would like to be heard in any direction? No. Councillor Devereux, would you like to close debate?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Ife, and thanks for all the input that people have given. Just in closing, I guess for me, climate emergency is something that is important locally, nationally, and globally. It's called a climate emergency for a reason. Action is needed, and I guess I was heartened by the fact that people from our community came and reinforced to us the fact that they are conscious of our climate emergency plan and wanted to see us take it seriously. Recently, we had a big building to be built next to Oak Street Station, and one of the provisions that was put by the town of Vic Park was that if that was to be approved, it should not have gas. So that was actually what town staff suggested to us to include for that building. The community also is saying it would be great to think about alternatives to gas, and basically to reiterate what I already said, basically in my motion I was keen to support the community initiatives on these 3 different areas, and this is the last one related to gas. And my understanding of the instructions we had from staff at the ABF 2 weeks ago, when we discussed the officers' comment on the annual meeting of electors meeting and motions, and those officers' comments haven't changed from 2 weeks ago, but I was conscious, given they had said where the town has said will, that it was clear the town would act on those elements, and where it said can, it indicated that the town had considered these options, could do something about it, but if we wanted to make sure it happened, we should make a notice of motion or an amendment as has been done tonight. So in this one, on motion 9, it did say in the officer's comment, in the review of the climate emergency plan, the town can include provision to investigate ways it can support residents' transition away from gas. And so on the basis of that intent, I took the wording and changed the can to will for the motion, and I don't really consider it a radical change, to be honest. And I encourage people to support the motion and the community raising the issue, and we see from the review what happens, and we can consider it then without having to cough up the six-figure figure up front. Thank you. So I commend the motion to people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Devereux. If people could please all vote, and just a reminder that this is on Councillor Devereux's third point of his amendment, please. All right, so those in favour, Councillor Anderson, Councillor Melrosa, Councillor Miles, Councillor Devereux, Councillor Minson, Councillor Cruiser and myself, and those against, Councillor Hamer and Mayor Vernon. So I declare that carried. Thank you very much for that discussion, everybody. Moving back to the substantive item as amended. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this item before we proceed? And is there any dissent on this item as amended? No dissent. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, moving on. Lots of pages. 11.4 is our next item. 11.3 having been dealt with by exception resolution. 11.4 is the annual review of delegations, and this is on the agenda because it requires an absolute majority. The recommendation is that Council 1 notes the review of the town's delegations has been completed in accordance with section 5.18 and 5.46 of the Local Government Act 1995. 2, revoke delegation 10.2.1 and replace it with a new delegation as contained in attachment 1. 3, endorses new delegations as contained in attachment 2, and 4, endorses the amended delegations as contained in attachment 3. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, for that item? That's moved Councillor Minson and seconded Councillor Miles. Councillor Minson, would you like to be heard? Thank you. Councillor Miles, would you like to be heard? Is there any dissent on this item, please? No, there being no dissent, I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. 11.5 has been moved by exception resolution. 11.6, presiding member and deputy presiding member for the town's committees. This also requires an absolute majority. The recommendation is that Council 1 reaffirms Mayor Vernon as the presiding member of the Audit and Risk Committee. 2, appoints Councillor Daniel Minson as the Deputy Presiding Member of the Audit and Risk Committee. 3, reaffirms Mayor Vernon as the Presiding Member of the Chief Executive Officer Recruitment and Performance Review Committee. And 4, reaffirms Deputy Mayor Bronwyn Ife as the Deputy Presiding Member of the Chief Executive Officer Recruitment and Performance Review Committee. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that item, please? That's moved Councillor Anderson and seconded Councillor Miles. Councillor Anderson, would you like to be heard? Councillor Miles, would you like to be heard? Would anyone like to ask any questions, or is there any dissent?
I do have a question, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Mayor Vernon, please go ahead.
I notice in the agenda, item 2 of the recommendation had a blank space for the appointment of a person as Deputy Presiding Member of the Audit and Risk Committee. Was that included in that manner because there was an intention to call for nominations for a person to be the Deputy Presiding Member, or was that a mistake that it was left as a blank line? Because otherwise I heard you to read out Councillor Minson's name.
It was left as a blank line, but there was only one indication of interest from elected members when this was discussed this afternoon. If there had been more than one elected member interested, we would have called for nominations.
Well, when you say a discussion held with elected members this afternoon, what sort of a meeting was that?
It wasn't a meeting. It was a discussion held informally to see if anyone wished to nominate.
So wouldn't that suggest that proper procedure would say you call for a nomination to fill that position? And if that happens to be Councillor Minson, then it's done on record in the council meeting?
We're moving it as an amendment based on the fact that an informal approach to all relevant committee members led to only one putting their name forward. Does that answer your question, Mayor Vernon?
That's the answer you've given me.
All right, is there any dissent to this item? Yes, Councillor Hamer.
Thank you, Deputy Ife. Isn't it the case that only one other person on the Audit and Risk Committee has a term that goes past October?
No, that's not true because Councillor Anderson is on the Audit and Risk Committee and she also has a term that goes past October.
Sorry, thank you.
Oh, valid point from Ms Tucker. All committee memberships finish in October anyway, at the time of the election.
So we'll be deputy until that point. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or that we need to discuss? No further questions. Is there any dissent? No, there being no dissent, I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Moving on, 12.1 has been dealt with by exception resolution, as is 12.2, 12.3, 13.1 has been dealt with by exception resolution. 13.2, food organics and garden organics FOGO implementation. We have an alternate motion from Mayor Karen Vernon. Mayor Vernon, I believe you'd like to test this in advance of the officer's recommendation.
That is correct, yes.
If you'd like to read out your alternate motion and your reason, please.
You just need to bear with me for a moment till I can put it up on my screen. The alternate motion is that Council 1 notes the administration's observations regarding the current state of the food organics and garden organics industry since Council's resolution on 15 December 2020 to roll out FOGO. 2, endorses option 2 to commence the rollout and implementation of FOGO from August 2025. 3, authorises the CEO to negotiate a short-term contract with a suitable FOGO processing provider on the most advantageous terms for the town until Mindarie Regional Council is able to process FOGO material, and to bring a report back to Council for approval if the value of the short-term contract exceeds the CEO's delegation. And it should be point number 4, request the CEO to commence a waste education campaign by 1 June 2025 for the implementation of FOGO as per point 2 above. Would you like me to read out my reason for?
Yes, please do.
Alternate? Thank you. My reason is, firstly, the town has the capacity to enter into a short-term contract to commence FOGO this year as previously resolved. Secondly, there is insufficient evidence supporting the concerns stated by the administration during the ABF that town's FOGO material would end up in landfill in the current FOGO operating environment. 3, it is most optimal for the implementation of FOGO to commence well before the start of summer, and November is too late. 4, having awarded the tender for the FOGO bins and associated services in April, the town has sufficient time to conduct a waste education campaign for the community and secure the delivery of those bins well before November 2025. 5, deferring implementation of FOGO this year and bringing only a status report back to Council in March 2026 creates the risk that, firstly, the current FOGO service providers will reach their existing maximum capacity, leaving no options available to the town if no additional processing capacity develops in WA by 2026. And secondly, the town misses a valuable opportunity to assess the success of our community's adoption of FOGO and resolve any problems via a short-term contract before considering a longer-term arrangement.
Thank you for that, Mayor Vernon. Can I call for a seconder? I believe Councillor Miles, you were seeking to second. Can we record Councillor Miles as a seconder, please? Mayor Vernon, would you like to speak to your item?
Yes, thank you. I have set out the main reasons for this, and I think there was a lot of questions asked by elected members at the agenda briefing forum around the officer's recommendation that we should pursue option number 1 to defer any further consideration of FOGO at this time and to only review the status of it next year. I was concerned to read that recommended option because my view is we promised our community FOGO a long time ago. We promised we'd do it in a staged rollout way, choosing Go first and adding FO at a later point in time. We promised them we'd add it as FOGO by 2025. So there's only what remains of this year left to do that. And I am very concerned that there is a degree of immaturity in FOGO processing services within Western Australia, but the ones that are currently available, there is greater uptake of those services happening on a regular basis, and soon some of those services may very well meet their capacity. And if nothing new comes online by 2026, as the officers propose we wait to, then we won't have any options left. And if Mindarie Regional Council is not able to bring a FOGO option to the table by that stage, we will simply be moving into the territory where FOGO potentially doesn't happen for quite some time for our community. So it seems like we've awarded the contract to get the bins and the kitchen caddies and the liners and get everything ready to get the rest of our community that doesn't already have a go bin to have a go bin, and everybody else to get their kitchen caddies. That will take us a significant step forward, and it appears that the contractor that we awarded the tender to is able to do that according to the report that I read. And so this is a great chance for us now to go to the handful of operators in WA and seek that short-term contract so we can meet our community's desire to have the really good environmental outcomes that come from FOGO. And I think with appropriately tightly worded contract provisions by the town to any FOGO processor, we can seek to adequately ensure that our FOGO material does not go to landfill, which is one of the administration's concerns. And possibly if we do this in a well-planned way, we will actually see our community come on board relatively quickly, just as they did for the Go bins. And we'll get good low contamination rates for our FOGO, just as we did for our Go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. Councillor Miles is the seconder. Would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. So I support this alternative motion because community support for FOGO has always been really strong in the town. When I ran for council in 2023, it was a consistently asked for topic. I guess we passed a resolution to transition to FOGO in 2020, and we've consistently communicated this message, and the community expects this from us. I don't see any reason to break this commitment. The reasons provided by the town in the for their option 1 in the report seems to be a little at odds with the information provided at the ABF, in that we've been told that there is FOGO processing capability within the metro area at this time, so there's no reason not to progress in that regard. The risks described in the recommendation, they're around uncertainty, but I don't see that uncertainty around contamination or potentially sending food waste to landfill is mitigated by deciding to basically send it to landfill while we wait until 2026 and beyond. I guess the other thing for me is that we have a climate emergency plan with trying to reduce our carbon emissions, organic waste in Australian landfills contribute 13 million tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions. It's 2.5% of the total Australian annual emissions is from food waste in landfill. And it seems to me that this is a kind of an easy solution for us. The community want it, the infrastructure's in place, we're kind of ready to roll it out. It just seems a complete no-brainer to kind of do something that we have the capacity to do, that community wants, that we're ready to go with. So that's why I'll be supporting this alternative motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miles. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this alternative? Oh, you have a question, Councillor Hammer? Councillor Hammer, a question.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I have a couple of questions about the amendment and also have a couple of questions that are confidential. Maybe take those after the amendment, or do we...
So are your questions, because it's not an amendment, it's an alternate item. So if you have confidential questions, we would need to go behind closed doors.
They're about the confidential attachments and the information in those. They're not about this alternate.
Just bear with me 1 minute, please, Councillor Hammer. All right, because there may be some questions asked that relate to a confidential attachment, I'm going to move a procedural motion that Council 1 closes the meeting to the members of the public at 7:56 p.m. to consider a potential confidential attachment to this item in accordance with section 5.232A of the Local Government Act 1995, and 2 permits the town staff to remain in the chamber during the discussion in accordance with clause 27.3A of the Town of Victoria Park Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019. So if we could arrange for the... Can I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Hamer, seconded. Thanks to the public gallery, we shouldn't be too long. We should be able to reopen fairly soon. A seconder for that, please. Everyone's seconding it. I'm going to choose Councillor Melrose for that one. Is there any dissent? All right, the meeting is now reopened to the public. Thank you very much. And our apologies again, Mayor Vernon. I hope you can see us now. All right, Councillor Minson, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Yes, thanks, Deputy Mayor Arf. Just on the point 4 about the waste education campaign, I'm just seeking some clarity that if we, as it is proposed, that we roll out the education campaign before we've secured a short-term supplier for taking the FOGO, that the way that that's worded, the alternate motion that is, that the initial few months of the education campaign can be, general enough not to predict the outcome of the tendering, so that we don't have to say that we are going to be rolling out FOGO by August. Just want to make sure that early days of that education campaign, while we're still waiting for the confirmation, that we don't commit anything to the community that we haven't actually secured yet.
Mr. Wong? Or Ms. Adams? Ms. Adams.
I might take that. Thank you. So through the chair, the communications team have advised they need about 10 to 12 weeks in preparation for a campaign on the rollout strategy, and that's in their view slightly separate to the education campaign. There is a lot of information now, as it's been pointed out, many local governments have been doing FOGO for a while, so there is a better community awareness of FOGO and in terms of the waste sorted campaigns. So the intention to leave the education part till later is separate to the rollout part. The rollout and the calendar, the waste calendar that needs to come out, does require a date for us to put in. And you're right, if it's in August, it's before we have any confirmation of when that actually is likely to occur, that we have secured a contractor, because we would need to get the waste calendar printed earlier than that date. So there is a slight risk around that.
Any further questions, Councillor Minson?
I'll just clarify. So you're saying that there isn't flexibility in the comms, from June 1st, at least up to the point we have secured a short-term operator, that we can't say, well, this is what FOGO is, just general comments about FOGO, and then as we firm up that short-term contract and the date that that's to be rolled out, then the comms transitions to, it might actually be September, not August, or whatever the outcome is. I guess I just don't want to. This isn't what August the 1st isn't going to be in the first bit of information that comes out on June the 1st. I guess is what I'm trying to clarify.
Ms. Adams.
So, through the chair, my understanding is that if it's a closer rollout date or an intended rollout date, it's only the rollout phase that would be communicated, whereas the education would be left till later. But in order for them to roll out and say that caddies and bins are coming on a certain date, we do have to have some certainty around that. So we do believe that could be a bit of a risk, because we do need to, with the 1st of June date, the calendar won't be out yet.
Anything further, Councillor Minson?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions on this alternate before I ask for further speakers on it? The Mayor's got her hand up. Mayor Vernon.
Yes, thank you. Can we have some clarification from Ms. Adams, please? What is meant by community education for FOGO wouldn't happen until after the rollout? Or did I mishear what was said?
Ms. Adams.
Thank you. Through the chair. That's correct, Mayor Vernon. My understanding is that with a rollout this calendar year, it would be separated out into the education around the, this is when your caddy is coming, this is what's happening, so that people were preparing for the arrival of their bins or the changing of the lids, etc. But the actual education piece would begin in earnest in a second phase. That depends on, what date that is chosen by council and the preparation time that the stakeholder relations team would require.
Does that assist, Mayor Vernon?
No, unfortunately it doesn't. So is what's being suggested that we would only inform people that they're getting their kitchen caddies and or their new go bin, and we wouldn't seek to educate them as to what to do with those things until after they'd received them? Is that what I understand you to be really saying?
Ms Adams.
Through the chair, yes, that is my understanding in discussions with the manager of stakeholder relations. And that's been quite clear. Whether or not they may review their strategy at a later date, the CEO might know. I'm personally unaware.
Mayor Vernon?
All right, then next question is there any reason why it isn't possible to run the education campaign from the 1st of June that starts to both educate people as to what they are supposed to do with FOGO bin system, noting that it's coming, as well as informing them when it's coming as soon as we have those dates?
Ms Adams.
Thank you. Through the chair, I believe that when we did receive advice on this amendment, there were some internal officer comments. I'm not sure if the CEO might wish to share them in relation to the stakeholder relations team.
Mr CEO?
I think, Mayor Vernon, I guess the short answer is to your question, no, but certainly the advice from the comms team was to undertake a two-phase process where the information initially provided was about the delivery of bins and caddies, and the second phase was about more the education. But can it be done? I guess anything is possible, and yes, it can be done.
Well, then I'd like to ask another question. It sounds like from what Ms Adams said that there's been discussions about my alternate motion internally, none of which have been shared with elected members. Is there a reason why those discussions, whatever they were, have not been shared with elected members?
Mr CEO?
No, not that I'm aware of, other than, as I say, once that information is received, there are obviously conversations that are ongoing and have been for some time internally.
Anything further, Mayor Vernon?
No, not at this time.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Devereux.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Ife. My question picks up on the education question as well, and it's, I guess, two questions. One is my understanding of other councils was that they did do a significant amount of behaviour change education to get people on board with FOGO before the mechanics came into the question. So I just wanted to ask if the town staff have an understanding of how other councils that have rolled out FOGO have done that, like Bassendean or others. Yeah, let's start with that one. Thanks.
Ms Adams.
Through the chair, yes, the town is aware of other local governments and what they've done, including Bassendean. We have found that there is obviously a correlation between the amount of education a community has prior to it happening and the contamination rates, but perhaps also noting that one of the more I suppose, relevant items is actually the bin audits. So whilst there's sometimes, quite long lead-in times and quite long education campaigns, that's not necessarily always related to lower contamination rates that meet the requirements. But people going around and doing bin audits and actually just letting residents know that this particular item, for example, you can't put pizza boxes or something like that in, that's had a much bigger impact on reducing contamination rates to the required levels than education campaigns alone.
Does that help, Councillor Devereux?
Yes, thank you. I'll keep that in mind when I eat pizza. The second question was just in relation to what the town is already doing in terms of our composting workshops and those sort of things, because my understanding was that in Bassendean's case, for example, they did a lot of composting workshops like we've been doing as part of their behaviour change and education of the community, and getting the community to take it on board. Would it be possible for the town to add to what it's doing in terms of its composting workshops and education focus, to include some element of the FOGO discussion and education that at the moment would be coming later, but actually maybe could be also incorporated into what we're already doing with the composting workshops? Would that be possible? Thanks.
Ms Adams.
Through the chair, yes, that is possible. And there is an intention to try and promote our composting workshops more, so hopefully we get a bigger uptake and can reach more residents.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Devereux. Any other questions? Councillor Hamer?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ife. When is the last point in time that we get to send out the calendars? Is it after the OCM for the budget in July? Would that be the date that we...
Can I address that to the Chief Financial Officer, Mr Old?
I can't give you exact date, but I think it's the preliminary work. It's the design, getting the dates, sent off to the printer, all that sort of stuff. So while they may, and I say may because I don't actually know conclusively, issue it sort of 30 June or thereabouts, it's almost, wouldn't say tomorrow, but it's very soon. We've got to lock that in. So we got design and graphics and all that sort of stuff, which lines up with whatever the intention is.
Anything further, Councillor Hamer? All right, are there any other questions on this item before I move into more debate on it? Appears that there are no more questions on this item. Okay, we have had the Mayor and Councillor Miles speaking in favour of this item. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this alternate motion? Is there anyone who's feeling a bit wobbly? Anyone who would like to speak against this motion? You don't have to speak. Is there any dissent to this alternate motion? All right, there is no dissent to this alternate motion. I therefore declare this alternate motion carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Mayor Vernon, for raising it. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Now, I note it is 8:30 and it's our normal practice to stop at this time for a short break. However, I also note that the remaining main items of the agenda have already been dealt with by exception resolution, which takes us to item 16. And there's only a couple of confidential items after that. So I'll just do a quick straw poll. Would elected members and staff like a 5-minute break, or should we push on and try to finish this? Any thoughts? Push on? Push on. There seems to be a general consensus that we will push on and try to finish this. Thank you, everybody. So all of the items under section 14 have been dealt with by exception resolution, as have those under section 15. Item 16, application for leave of absence. The recommendation is that council approves a leave of absence for Mayor Karen Vernon for the dates of 21 May to 23 May 2025 inclusive and 17 June 2025. I'm happy to move that. Can we get a seconder for that, please? Councillor Miles has indicated she's happy to second that. Is there any dissent? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. There is no motions of which previous notice has been given. Point 18, questions from members without notice. I did have one, but I'm going to send it through as an elected member request for information. Is there anyone else who... Councillor Melrosa and then Councillor Miles.
I have several around the bulk waste. First one, in relation to the delays surrounding the collection of the bulk waste pickup, what communications did the town conduct on Facebook or via email, etc., to inform the community about the delay and the reasons for it?
Mr. Wong.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. The town has been posting information about the progress of collection for the 4 areas on the town's web page. There may be other communications messaging provided by the comms team, but that's what I know has been done through the web page of the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Melrosa.
Can I then get just the detail around that later, not this meeting, just about what communications were done on Facebook, specifically social media? Second question is, I've received several emails and read several comments on social media about the town not responding to inquiries about the bulk waste collection. How many inquiries has the town received, and is or was there at any point a backlog of inquiries about the bulk waste collection?
Ms. Adams.
Thank you, through the chair. We'll take it on notice and check with our customer service team.
Councillor Melrosa.
Fantastic. And just one more. How are the items of bulk waste which are rejected by the collector going to be dealt with? Sorry, it's not just the only one. There's one more after this.
Mr. Wong.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. It depends on what were rejected. For example, if it's items like glass tables or TV, large screen televisions, they will not be collected. Items that are considered to be unacceptable for bulk waste collection will basically be not collected, and residents, if they are not, brought back into the property, the town will basically notify them and ask them to retrieve those items. Yep, thank you.
Councillor Melrosa.
I guess this second question sort of touches on that, but might still be relevant. Have any fines or warnings been issued for illegal dumping / placement of rubbish to residents, ratepayers or otherwise in this collection?
Mr. Old.
I'll have to take that on notice. I don't know. Sorry.
Thank you. We'll take that on notice. Is that all, Councillor Melrosa?
And one unrelated one about not about the bulk waste, but can councillors in the community be updated on the progress of the Uniting WA residential project in Carlisle, given it's been given approval some time ago and no visual progress of the development has been made to date?
Mr. Doy.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'll have to take that on notice as well. I won't be able to, I don't know of progress off the top of my head.
Thank you, Mr. Doy. We'll take that on notice. Councillor Miles, did you have questions?
I did have a question about the Verge bulk waste. I was curious if we could have an update as to when it was going to be collected. Mayor Vernon put in an elected member request that was answered on the 6th of May saying Area 3 was anticipated to start that week, so Tuesday the 6th of May. The website says as of the 16th of May, Area 3 is in progress. It's now the 20th of May. Area 3 is still full of bulk waste. So, yeah, it would be good to get some idea of when it will be finished or started. Just something.
I did notice this on my way home from the gym the other day. Yes, Mr. Wong.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, we will provide that update. Definitely Area 3, the contractor is working in that area now. There's been some delays in Area 3, but we will provide that update. Yeah, thank you.
So can we expect that update to all elected members in the next couple of days? Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Miles?
I'm just wondering as well, I guess I'm asking this because a lot of community members are asking a lot of questions. Would it be possible to actually communicate something publicly, like acknowledging the delays, or when I say maybe not on the website, like something a bit more active, possibly, just a thought, but could we communicate this a little bit better with our rather stressed community, please?
Including a very conscientious 6-year-old who emailed all elected members today with their concerns, which I thought was really impressive. Is that able to be done, please, Ms Adams?
Thank you. Chair, we will discuss that with our communications team.
Thank you very much. Any other questions without notice from elected members? Mayor Vernon, are you looking like you have one? No? Yes, Mayor Vernon.
Yes, I've also got some questions about the bulk waste. I received an email last Friday from a member of the community concerned about this, who advised that the town's previous contract for bulk waste collection was not extended due to an administration error. Can the administration make any comment on that as to whether there is a view that the previous contract was not extended due to an administration error? Because I don't know where this information is coming from that's been given to members of the community.
I'll address that to the Chief Financial Officer, Mr Old.
The previous bulk verge collection contract had all the extendable options used, and we had no contract or lawful means of extending without getting a separate contract.
Does that help, Mayor Vernon?
Not particularly. Obviously, I understand that it says that there were no more extensions, but for the record, the delay in securing a contract for the current pickup, can that please have an explanation that goes on the record?
Mr Old?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, we actually went out twice. So the first time we got no successful, or I don't think anyone put a bid in. Therefore, we met with the CEO when we went out again and we extended the response period by an extra week. So it was out of our control that we didn't get a response the first time.
Mayor Vernon?
And my final question is in relation to the current contractor who is doing this, what I understand is one pickup for the final bulk waste collection before 30 June 2025. Is it the administration's understanding that that collector has experienced any delays in being able to pick up the bulk waste in each of the areas from the time the contract was awarded to them?
Mr Wong?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ive. From the information that we've had, basically it was based on what was submitted to the town, and the contract was awarded on that basis. There was no mention of a potential delay. However, we did know that there were public holidays, which may or may not have caused the delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Wong. Mayor Vernon, anything further?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Devereux?
Just one quick one. I know the rail line is reopening on the 8th of June, I believe, and I think the community is quite excited about that. I certainly am. And I know some councils are doing community celebrations of some kind, and I just wondered whether there was something happening in the town on the 8th of June or whether we have to go further afield. Thanks.
Mr Doyle, are we going to have a train party?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Ife. I'm just getting up my party invitation up now to read to everybody. So there was originally planned to be an opening for the Thornley-Coburn line, which is your reference to further afield, Councillor Devereux, but that has turned into a link-up, line-up, family-friendly community event, which will also, on the same date, include invite the community to the 5 new elevated stations on the inner Armidale line. Obviously, we've got 2 of those. They'll be accessible on the day with light activation, including wayfinding support and Metronet information displays. And this will allow the public to view the new elevated stations designed before train services open up the next day, which is on Monday, the 9th of June. So that is what's been planned by Metronet, is to invite the public in, and I suspect there'll be other activations and things going on that day as people can go in and see the new train stations.
There you go. Put it in your diary, Councillor Devereux. Any other questions before we move on? Great. Thank you, everybody. New business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of the meeting. We have none. Item 20, I'll open public question time at 8:41 p.m, but noting that the public gallery has no one in it, I will close it again straight away at 8:41 p.m. Likewise, public statement time, I will open at 8:41 p.m, and I'm just giving anyone a chance to run in the doors, and there is no one, so I will close it at 8:41 p.m. We now have 2 confidential items that need to be considered, so I will move a procedural motion that Council 1 closes the meeting to the members of the public at 8:41 p.m. to consider items 22.1.1 and 22.1.2 in accordance with section 5.232A of the Local Government Act 1995, and 2, permits the Manager of Governance and Strategy and Manager of People and Culture to remain in the chamber during discussion in accordance with clause 27.3A of the Town of Victoria Park Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Minson. Is there any dissent?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor Ive.
Yes,
you do need to make provision for the CEO to come into the meeting if council requires him to do so, because currently your wording only allows 2 people to be in the room.
Excellent point. Thank you, Evan. And so we will add point 3, that the CEO remain available in case we invite him back into the meeting during the duration of this closed session. Are you happy with that, my seconder? Thank you. Is there any dissent? All right, if we can close the meeting, please. All right, we have reopened to the public at 9:01 p.m. Welcome back into the chamber, everybody. I will now read the public reading of the resolutions from the confidential session. The first resolution was that the CEO Recruitment and Performance Review Committee recommends that Council 1 endorses the findings of the CEO Probation Review Report and the KPI Assessment Report as set out in the confidential attachments and approve notifications of the findings to the CEO. 2, acknowledges that the CEO has satisfactorily completed the probation period in the CEO contract of employment. And 3, resolves that this report and its attachments remain confidential in accordance with section 5.232A of the Local Government Act 1995. The second item is that the CEO Recruitment and Performance Review Committee recommends that Council 1 approves a variation to Schedule 2 of the CEO Contract of Employment between the Town of Victoria Park and Carl Askew, as set out in Confidential Attachment 21.2.2. 2, authorises the Mayor to sign the varied Schedule 2 as set out in Confidential Attachment 21.2.2 on behalf of the Town of Victoria Park. And 3, resolves that this report and its attachments remain confidential in accordance with Section 5.232A of the Local Government Act 1995. There being no further business of Council tonight, I declare the meeting closed at 9:02 p.m. Thank you very much for your patience online, Mayor Vernon. We hope you're feeling better soon. Thank you to those who watched on live stream, and good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Please be upstanding.